Hello, everybody. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I don't think that I need to tell you that it is Florida week. We are beginning for a lot of teams conference play. If you're Tennessee, you've got 4 straight games of it, and you do not get really any relief for the next 4 weeks. This is the first of a lot of important games for you. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's the most important game for you. I really agree with Chris Goforth. He was on the show about a month ago, and Florida's the important game here. You've lost to them 11 years in a row, and at some point, someone needs to break the chain to bring Tennessee to a new place, to elevate it to past the misery that it had seen previously. And we still haven't beaten Florida yet. Like, this is the most important game in the stretch of 4 games. And I understand that in this stretch of 4 games, you've got Alabama, which that game can get ugly. And so you don't want that to happen to you with them. But, you've got Georgia. And I mean, the rivalry there is strong as well. And, of course, A&M, Texas A&M, they're good, but the important game to win here is Florida because it's been so long since Tennessee has beaten them. And this, of course, is a year in which both teams are very much in contention to win the SEC East. Tennessee at the beginning of the season was the favorite of a lot of people's, but go back to SEC media days. The Florida players were not intimidated at all. And in fact, many of them were upset in a lot of ways that Tennessee was given a lot of credit and a lot of accolades for being the favorite in the East without ever having done a whole lot. Like, they ended the season well. And Florida's like, but we won the East last year. So how do they get to leapfrog us? Why do they get to jump us? And we're still here. The Florida players were very defiant that we still have the SEC East and we still own Tennessee. So this game is hugely important for a lot of reasons beyond going to the SEC title game and beyond trying to make the college football playoff, even though those two things will be ramifications of this game, especially if you're Florida, because your schedule is none easy after this either. Tennessee just has all of their carnage bunched together now. Florida's got a rough run later, including ending the season with a Florida State team that's very, very good. So, the importance here is huge. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, Florida's missing Luke Del Rio at quarterback. Does this increase the chances that Tennessee beats Florida? Well, yes, it does. Luke Del Rio is better than Austin Appleby. But if you go back through the history of this rivalry, Florida's got a bad, bad habit of beating Tennessee with backup quarterbacks. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because these injuries that happen in the game, and then the guy that comes out that you haven't game planned for just comes out and lights you up. But it happens so frequently that it's one of those things that it's starting to go beyond head scratcher. When in 2013, Tyler Murphy replaced Jeff Driscoll. Driscoll injured his leg in the game, and Tyler Murphy came in and threw a touchdown and ran a touchdown, 134 yards passing, 84 yards on the ground, and Florida won the game 31-17, which is not a bad memory that I intend to bring up, except to say Tyler Murphy lit up Tennessee in a way that nobody was expecting. And then the next year, Jeff Driscoll gets pulled out. Tennessee has a 9-0 lead, and they end up losing the game 10-9. Never got into the end zone. Treon Harris leading the team back. Backup quarterbacks have this mysterious, curious history, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, of beating Tennessee. And now here comes Austin Appleby, a guy that you're not wholly familiar with, and he's got a chance. He's got a chance. And he's got a chance because Florida's defense is very, very good. Nationally, Florida is one of the few teams with a top 5 run defense and a top 5 pass defense. They don't give up very many yards, which is not great news if you're a Tennessee fan, because Tennessee is having trouble with defenses that are not elite. Ohio's defense is not elite. Tennessee struggles moving the ball. Appalachian State's defense is not elite. Tennessee is having struggles moving the ball. And it is starting to become a theme at this point. If Tennessee doesn't have the ability and the capability to move the ball through the air, which it doesn't seem that they do, and they even struggle at times on the ground, even though you would say that they're a running team, the only person that's really teeing off is Josh Dobbs. Like, Josh Dobbs is picking up tons of yardage on the ground. He seems to be the one that's unstoppable. Jalen Hurd is averaging 90 yards a game, and I'm going to tell you something right now. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. And we have the game here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. The game is going to be live this Saturday, Florida, Tennessee. And the ramifications of this game could not be more stark, because this game might be the game that gets Butch Jones run. If he can't win it, this might be the game. It's not acceptable to lose to Florida for 12 seasons. And Butch Jones has been here for 3 of those. And last year's loss is so ridiculous. Like, if Butch Jones and Tennessee didn't lose last year's Florida game, this game's not as important. It's very important still, because you can't win the East without beating Florida and or Georgia. You have to. Especially Florida, because of the teams in the SEC East, Florida looks like the best team. Which, I mean, I don't want to say, because I picked Tennessee to win the East, and I still think that they should win it. But Florida looks like the best team when you look consistently at how they beat their opponents. And no, they haven't played any world beaters. They opened the season with UMass, won 28-7 in a game that, quite frankly, was closer than it looked. You scored a lot of those touchdowns late if you're Florida. And then you just finished up against North Texas. You beat them 32-0. Like, every week, Florida gets better and better, but they're playing, and they played Kentucky, I believe, week 2, and beat them 28-7 also, I believe. And so you're beating schools that are a combined 3-6 on the season. You haven't beaten anybody with a winning record. So it's not like Florida's gone out and burned the world down beating a quality opponent. What they've done, though, is beaten the people in front of them reasonably good, reasonably well, winning by multiple touchdowns, scoring more than 21 points. In the case of North Texas, not even allowing a touchdown. Beating your opponents in front of you reasonably well. Tennessee hasn't done that. Tennessee has played Appalachian State, who is a quality FCS school, but they're an FCS school. And you needed 17 unanswered points in a second half and an overtime to beat them. You went out and beat Ohio, but you made that look as difficult as it could have possibly looked. And then in the case of Virginia Tech, that's the one game where you scored over 30 points. You beat them 45-24, but boy, does it look ugly. It looks truly hideous. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I don't want to poo-poo your win, especially the one against Virginia Tech, because that's the game where it looked like, okay, maybe this is the Tennessee we're going to get all season. But Virginia Tech helped you out there. They put the ball on the ground 4 times. They gave you a helping hand. And so I have doubts for Tennessee against Florida. I do. I have very, very strong doubts. And by the way, it's not like I'm guaranteeing anything with Florida. I don't know what Florida's made of. Like I said, they haven't really played anybody. But the people that they've played that you wouldn't consider to be anybody, they haven't really struggled to beat. And that means something. Now, with Austin Appleby at quarterback for Florida, I wonder what their offense is going to look like. Appleby is a guy, he can throw the ball pretty well. He can run a little bit. 19 touchdowns and 19 interceptions in his time at Purdue, and then he ran for 9 more touchdowns. So he's got the mobility. He's got a little bit of the dual threat. I think the issue with Austin Appleby is that touchdown to interception ratio. That looks nice for Tennessee. You got to take advantage of those turnovers because I think Tennessee's defense is really good. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how it holds up against SEC level competition, but they've proven they can force turnovers. They forced the fumble in every game this season. They've proven that they can capitalize on those turnovers when they get it. How many is Florida going to give you? Like, if anything that losing Luke Del Rio gives Tennessee is this. Luke Del Rio wasn't burning the world to the ground with his play, but what he was doing was he was going out there and not turning the ball over, making solid to decent decisions with the football and making Florida at least formidable offensively because they weren't giving the ball away. They weren't giving you back the ball, which is nice to see. I don't know if they're going to get that from Austin Appleby. He might be a little interception prone. I mean, it's a small sample size, his career at Purdue. It's not the biggest sample size. I believe 11 starts. But 19 touchdowns to 19 interceptions as a touchdown to interception ratio, by my math, not good. By my math, that seems to be pretty bad. And if you're Tennessee and you can take advantage of those, you might be able to put some points on the board with your defense. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. We'll be hosting Tennessee and Florida here on the airwaves this Saturday. Tennessee, Florida. And that's going to be, I mean, to me, that's the game of the week. Any conference. Like, the stakes are so important. A coach could get fired over this. McElwain's not going to get fired, regardless, right? But Butch Jones could get run over this. 9-4 last season. He's got to improve on that. This is the stretch of games where you think, Tennessee could really drop a few. And I think that he can drop 2 games in this stretch of 4 games and still come out to the end of the season just fine. Honestly, I really do. I think you could drop 2 games here and come out to the end of the season just fine. But one of those games cannot for any reason be the Florida Gators. It absolutely cannot be. Can't be. I mean, there's too much history here. At some point, when you're a head coach of a football team, they bring you in to slay the dragon. They bring you in to close the deal. You're the closer here. You cannot have this be a reoccurring thing. Like, it's one of those things where, depending on the history of your school, you just don't have as much leeway as everybody else. If you are Vanderbilt and you are continually owned by Florida, nobody expects you to beat Florida consistently. The reason why this is such a huge deal is we remember when Tennessee was great. Wasn't that long ago? You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. We are going to have Tennessee, Florida as our college football game of the week this upcoming Saturday. And we'd like you to come on out and join us for that. Check us out on the radio. You're driving around town. There is no good reason. And I see you all, by the way, on Saturday driving around town. So there's no good reason why you shouldn't be listening to this game and checking it out, because the ramifications here are gigantic. And in fairness, unnecessarily so. Because I don't think Butch Jones is going to be any worse of a coach if he somehow manages to lose to Florida. But I do think that the perception is that he never beat Florida, and that's going to be a mark against him as long as he's at Tennessee, as long as he is here. And even after he is here, if that's what should transpire, one of the things that's going to go to be held against Butch Jones is never beat Florida. You beat Florida, you would be amazed at the amount of time that buys you as a head coach. Shocked at the amount of time that you get as a head coach if you beat Florida. It's not the one game that matters, but it is a huge game that matters. Looking at the stretch of 4 games, I'm going to go with, you can lose. If you lose to A&M and you lose to Bama, but you beat Florida and Georgia, I think people let you off the hook. I really do. I think people let you off the hook a little bit. I mean, there's no way you come through all 4 of these games completely unscathed. But beating Florida like this, you're both ranked. But man, Tennessee this season has made offense look so difficult. Like, it's been just hard to watch. I don't enjoy watching them play offense. I actually enjoy watching them play defense. And it's interesting because defensive coordinator Bob Shoop has basically said this season he was brought to Tennessee to beat Florida. And you know what? That might be the case. But if Tennessee doesn't beat Florida, I don't know if you can put it all on the shoulders of Bob Shoop simply because he accepted the responsibility. You know how it works in baseball, right? Like, a pitcher can go out there, pitch a fantastic game, and still lose. Maybe he only gives up 2 runs. He pitches all 9 innings, gives up 2 runs because his team only scored 1. Like, you've got to get run support. And Tennessee's offense against a Florida defense that does not allow much against the pass, like I said earlier, and doesn't allow much against the run, which is Tennessee's specialty, it's going to be rough. Like, if Tennessee gets in positions to score, they're going to need a lot of help from defense, and they're going to need a lot of help from special teams, because offensively, they haven't shown you much unless they are keeping something a secret that the rest of us are not aware about. Unless they are keeping something to themselves that they didn't tell us, there isn't a whole lot that I have seen on that offense. I mean, it's not like LSU bad, but it is on a level of predictable that at least me as a football fan, I'm very tired of. Like, Tennessee runs like 4 plays. And then 1 play action fake off of the 4 plays. There's not a whole lot of creativity in the offense. It doesn't pop. And I don't know, again, if that's something that we put on the O-line. I have to think that to some degree, having an offensive line that can't really block for you is making life very difficult, not just for Josh Dobbs, but for Alvin Kamara and Jalen Hurd as well. Like, just being able to try and break off those big runs that we were able to see them break off last season, you're just not seeing nearly enough of it. Granted that from drive to drive, you see flashes. Like, you'll see flashes of Kamara breaking out. You'll see flashes of Hurd breaking out. And, of course, you'll see flashes of Dobbs doing exactly what it is that he does, which is being mobile and punishing defenses with his feet. But the problem is we don't see that consistently from drive to drive. We'll see it in the first quarter. We might see it in the third quarter. We might see it at the beginning of the fourth quarter. We don't see it consistently from drive to drive, Tennessee imposing their will on the other team and basically playing the game like, this is what we do. And we're just gonna keep giving it to you until you break. And we don't see that from them. And the reason why, reasonably, you would have picked Tennessee to win the East like I did was that you saw them do that at the end of last season. The last 6 games or so, Tennessee put their stamp all over the season. They looked like the real deal. They pushed people around. They made sure people knew that they were smaller. They were like, look, we're running the football. That's obvious, but stop us then. And then you couldn't stop them. And I need to see more of that. If you can't throw the football, fine. Georgia Tech doesn't throw it. But if you're going to run. Be effective at it. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. We'll be talking more Tennessee, Florida, and SEC football next.
Wars come and go, but my soldiers stay eternal.
Now you can listen to Hot News Talk Radio anywhere, streaming live at Noogaradio.com. That's Noogaradio.com.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Shooter Supply, any A-frame, 20% off, 10% off, 5% off. Everything in the store's on sale. 5, 10, 20. September sales days. Shooter Supply, handguns, carry permit classes, ammo and gear. You get 5% off of firearms, 10% off of ammo and gear, 20% off of all handgun carry permit classes. Shooter Supply, September sales days. But you gotta get here now. It's ending soon. Shooter Supply, any A-frame. We're on Hickson Pike, right around the corner, right next to the Holiday Inn Express. Shooter Supply and Indoor Range. Shooters-range.com. Order online. Shooters-range.com. September sales days.
Hi, this is Mike at Wholesale Liquidation, Highway 58, next to Taco Bell, featuring over 6,000 square feet of unique and everyday wholesale items, discounted at, get this, 50 to 75% off for retail, from new and pre-owned tools to chainsaws and auto accessories. Wholesale Liquidation, Highway 58, next to Taco Bell.
You want more business. You want to increase your bottom line. You want to spend less on advertising, imaging your business, and general expenses. You need Trade Bank. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Trade Bank. Call now to get access to nearly 400 local businesses. Trade Bank. Call 877-2202. 877-2202. Trade Bank. You want to increase your cash flow, your competitive edge, attract new customers, and build a loyal customer base. You need Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call right now. 877-2202. When you join Trade Bank, you'll get the benefit of free advertising in our monthly magazine, tradebank.com, emails, and mailouts. Join Trade Bank now and receive your Trade Bank debit card with trade credits to spend any way you want with our wide variety of Trade Bank partners. For almost 30 years, Trade Bank has been your voice for small business, a member of the American Bankers Association, and in good standing with you. Trade Bank of Chattanooga. Call now for a free consultation, 877-2202. That's 877-2202. Trade Bank of Chattanooga.
This is Mike at For the Record at Northgate Mall. We're the largest complete record store in town. We sell old and new vinyl records, celebrity posters, music posters, and we are the largest in town. Come see us.
Expect mostly clear skies to continue through the nighttime. Mild again overnight, lows into the mid-60s. For Thursday, few afternoon clouds, otherwise mostly sunny, highs 88 to 90. Continued hot and dry for the next several days with highs through Sunday, 90 to 92. Come to Larry's Restaurant in Trenton for some of the finest home-style cooking around. Larry also offers catering for parties big and small. That's Larry's, open Thursdays through Sundays, just off 559 in Trenton. And I'm Gene 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. Hot News Talk 1240.
Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. A giant bypass surgery of sorts given to the gas pipeline in Alabama, which now allows it to flow gas freely up to the Chattanooga area. It's going to take several days for gas prices to return to normal, but we should be well on track now. In Marion County, a truck on I-24 West flipped over the median and crashed, killing the driver and injuring another motorist. The truck has been identified as a car carrier, the kind that has multiple cars on its back. It flipped over. Damage to those cars was done, but the driver cause is still under investigation. Red Bank will be receiving money from the Federal Homeland Security. A grant for digital radios will be received in the tune of $36,080 in funds for buying digital radios for both the police and fire departments in Red Bank. Also received only $10,000 from Hamilton County, combined with $10,000 of city money to fund a repair of a baseball field. And daily reminder, early voting starts on October the 19th for the presidential election. If it's going on the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Max Jr. is off the pace and he is headed to the pit lane. Elliott Powers around the outside. Michael McDowell pops a right front tire. Here's Martin Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocks him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240. The voice of NASCAR.
So if you don't know by now, one of the best college football blogs out there, if you're looking for stuff to read online, is Saturday Down South. You take it or leave it however you want to. John Christ is one of the better writers on the site, and he's a guy that can be kind of a contrarian a little bit. But overall, I think the whole blog is really well written. And they find some really great topics, right? And so one of the topics of this week they were discussing is which contender will break away in the SEC East. Because I was talking about it a little bit yesterday. Alabama is the tops of the SEC, right? They are the best team in the SEC. It's not really quite close. Like when you look at all of the teams and they can pass that eye test of who can win a national championship based on what you've seen so far. And you go down all the teams in the league, Alabama to me stands out as the one team that, yeah, they could make it, and they ought to. Like, I'd be shocked if they didn't. A&M is second, but it's a distant second. I don't think that you put A&M against Alabama right now, and A&M beats Alabama. Now we get further into this season, teams start wearing down. And possibly some more experience gained by Texas A&M, well, then maybe you have yourself a different story. But at the moment, I don't think that A&M is quite on Alabama's level. But Alabama is the best team in the SEC. It's not quite close. I thought Alabama was going to take a step back this season because of all of the talent that they lost to the NFL. But no, it hasn't really slowed them down at all. They're Alabama. They've recruited so well that they really haven't skipped a beat. And Jalen Hurts, as a freshman, gives them something at the quarterback position that I personally have not ever seen Alabama with, which is a quarterback who is dynamic. But when you look at a lot of these question marks for contenders, a lot of these question marks come from the SEC East, not the West. I mean, you have question marks about LSU. LSU was a pick that a lot of people had this season to win the West. A&M was a dark horse kind of pick. And do those teams have questions? Yes. But LSU's questions are obvious and have been questions for ages. And Texas A&M, their questions are small questions. Their questions aren't gigantic questions. When you turn your gaze to the East and look at Florida, look at Georgia, and look at Tennessee, who, and let's be honest with ourselves, those are the three teams that could even win the East. They're the only three teams that could win the East. Like, I'm not being over dramatic, and I think that you've seen it too. Nobody else can win the SEC East. It's pretty awful. Like, as far as the doings and happenings in the league, it's pretty lopsided talent-wise. Okay, because Mizzou's not winning the East, Kentucky's not winning the East, South Carolina's not winning the East, and Vandy's not winning the East. Especially when Tech, like, I don't even know what that was. That game was bizarre. But, I mean, you've got Florida, Georgia, Tennessee. Those are the three teams that could possibly win the East. And I'm going to go ahead and give Florida the edge right now based purely on the fact that of the three teams, they've been the most consistent. And it's harder for me to even do that because when you play three teams whose record is a combined 3-6, I mean, it's hard for me to, I can't outright give it to you. I can't outright say you're the best team in the East. but you are a little bit the best team in the East. You're handling the business in front of you. And not one of those games, if you're a Florida fan watching the games, you came away and felt like, you know what? This feels like losing. Because you're Tennessee, you get the W against Appy State. You get the W against Ohio. But let's be honest, that felt like losing. You're Georgia. You get the W against Mizzou. I understand that you're happy that you beat Mizzou the way you did. That was exciting football. But to me, as an outsider, not necessarily a Georgia fan, that felt like losing. And then the way you beat Nichols the week before, that is the definition of a win that feels like losing. It's just not right to win football games that way. Like, they should have just given Nichols the W. They should have just done it. They should have just handed them and their M. Bison-looking mascot the W, because that felt like a loss in every way. The only Florida has played inferior opponents where it didn't feel like losing. It feels like losing the way that Tennessee and Georgia have been doing it. It really has. And still, if Tennessee went out and beat Florida on Saturday, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm worried about Tennessee's ability to beat Florida because of the offense, but it wouldn't surprise me. But which one of these teams is the real contender in the SEC East? And I think it's so hard to tell, mostly because we don't know how much better Jacob Eason can get this season. He's already really good, but he's a freshman, and there's going to be a lot of growth here, but there's also going to be a lot of downs. And I don't know if we've seen, and we obviously haven't seen the best of Jacob Eason, but I don't know if the best of Jacob Eason is incredibly much more than what we have seen. Like, for me, I can't wait till Jacob Eason is a junior, sophomore, or junior, senior quarterback. Like, that's going to be some exciting stuff. He's going to tear everybody to pieces. But before we get to that point, Jacob Eason this season is a contender for the SEC title game. And you have to look at Georgia and go, if they have too many games where they just don't get a lot of production out of Nick Chubb, and have games where they feel like they have to bring him along slowly, which, by the way, is completely understandable given that knee injury that he had, then you know what? You're going to struggle to make it to the title game. Yes, even though your other two teams that you're running up against are Florida and Tennessee, who aren't exactly world beaters. But if you're telling me that Tennessee can't get to the SEC title game, if Tennessee gets to the SEC title game, then in my opinion, they can win it. It's only a game. It's not baseball. It's not basketball. It's not a series. Now you get to prepare for one opponent, knock them out. So like this stuff is huge. And so this is a little bit of separation Saturday for all of these schools, because the real SEC East contender may be decided in the next 3 to 4 weeks, especially if you're Tennessee, because whether or not you can actually contend, if you go 0-4 in this stretch of games, you basically can't. At 9-4, I don't think Georgia and Florida are going to lose 4 games. I don't think Tennessee will either. But if they do, then so far as it looks, as far as contending for the SEC title game, it's a done deal. At least on paper. Like you'd have to think so. So that's why this game against Florida is hugely important, besides all the obvious just rivalry stuff and that you hate those people. Like, if you just take away rivalry hatred and go, you know what? We don't just hate those people. This game is still hugely important, because it's not like the West, where basically everybody's looking at the back of Alabama, and maybe like Alabama would have to have just a catastrophic rash of injuries. Just a horrible rash of injuries to give anybody space to win the West. Because LSU's already shown us why they can't do it. And A&M is capable of beating Alabama, but will they? Because A&M beat Auburn, but they didn't necessarily put Auburn to sleep in a way that if you looked at the way that Auburn was playing offense, you should have put Auburn to sleep. Like, you should have just knocked them out. Auburn cannot move the football consistently well. They move it in bursts, but they can't get into the end zone for sure. You should just put Auburn away. I think that Auburn is not. Gus Malzahn is one of the truly fascinating people of this college football season. Let's put it that way. That I don't know what he's doing. You don't know what he's doing, and he's fooling himself the most, because even Gus Malzahn does not know what Gus Malzahn is doing, which is a huge, huge problem for the Auburn Tigers in a season where a whole lot more out of Gus. He should have known his seat was hot. I don't know if Gus actually knew the temperature of his seat, because the way that Gus Malzahn talks about stuff, you would think that wasn't the case. Like, the way that Gus Malzahn talks about his game planning, it seems to me that everybody but Gus Malzahn knows what the situation is. Gus Malzahn is going to try and run out 3 different quarterbacks in week 1. Gus Malzahn is going to be the guy that's going to say Sean White is our quarterback moving forward. And then, you know what? Never mind. It's not Sean White. It's John Franklin, because Sean White looks terrible. Like, you've been looking at these guys all summer and didn't know that they were all bad at being quarterbacks? At least in your system? Because I think the system does have a lot to do and come into play with how it is that guys work. Like, for instance, at LSU, I think Brandon Harris would be a much better quarterback in somebody else's system. And the only reason why I have to come away with that conclusion is that Brandon Harris is too talented and too athletic, in my opinion, for that just to be, well, Brandon Harris didn't just live up to his potential. Okay, fair enough. But why didn't he live up to his potential? He doesn't strike me as a lazy guy or like a bad guy. Like, we had inklings that Jamarcus Russell was lazy when Jamarcus Russell was down there. But Jamarcus Russell had a huge arm, and that paid off. Jamarcus Russell could hit the home run. But you had inklings that Jamarcus Russell wasn't really trying that hard at football. Brandon Harris doesn't strike you as that guy, does he? He's big guy, strong arm, great mobility. Sure, he makes poor decisions, but part of it is, like, he has only like a handful of decisions he has to really make because he's playing in an offense that doesn't allow him to do much. You're not taking advantage of any of his particular skill set when you think about it. You're not taking advantage of that stuff. And I think that's partially system fit. I think that if Brandon Harris played in another system, he would be a better quarterback. We would think of him much differently. I don't think we think of him as a great, but I don't think we think of him as quite the bust that a lot of people think he's turned out to be. Now also replaced by a quarterback from Purdue. So who knows? Maybe the goal of the University of Purdue is to be a quarterback pipeline to the SEC. But regardless, you're looking at a situation where Brandon Harris, he's got all of the tools to succeed, but it's just not a great fit for him. And then Gus Malzahn is over here with quarterbacks that obviously don't fit and just running them out there anyway. Like, dude, what are you thinking? You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. This is Florida week. If you're a Vols fan, And I know you didn't need me to tell you that, but you've got to beat him. And more importantly, if you're Butch Jones, you got to beat him because I think the fans will run him out of Knoxville personally. I think everybody will just show up and try and run him out of town the way that they did in Frankenstein. You show up at the UT with pitchforks and torches trying to run Butch Jones out of town because like at what cost? How long does it take before you beat Florida? Like, this is the situation to beat Florida in. This is the situation. The situation is this. Their starting quarterback is gone. Their backup quarterback has a touchdown to interception ratio in his career of 19 touchdowns to 19 interceptions. 19 touchdowns to 19 interceptions. He does not take care of the football nearly as well as Del Rio did. Right? 19 touchdowns to 19 interceptions. This is the stage for you. This is a Florida team that's been pretty solid and one of the better teams in the East. And all you have to do is beat them when basically they don't have their best quarterback playing. Luke Del Rio, by the way, is not out for the season. His injury is not considered a season-ending injury. It is an injury that he's ruled out for Tennessee, but he will return this season, though as to when, I am not yet sure. But as soon as I get that news, I'll relay it on to you. But Florida's got a lot to play for because if they can hang in there and get Luke Del Rio back, they'll be sitting pretty well to be able to make a move in the SEC East, which is a conference where we don't know who the best team is. I mean, it is a division where we don't know who the best team is, and it's not even close. They're all bunched together in a ball of what the heck? What is this? Because all of them have just glaring weaknesses. Florida's is that they don't have really big playability. Like, it just, as long as they take care of the football and move the ball up and down the field, they're fine, right? Like, they can just beat you. But that's not going to work against every single opponent. It's worked because your opponents so far have been Kentucky, UMass, and North Texas. That's not going to work against a bunch of these SEC teams. Just keep the ball safe. You can't just keep the ball safe. Like, you look at what Texas A&M is doing, they're coming to hurt you. Like, that defensive line is horrifying. Alabama, front seven, scary dudes. Yeah, keeping the ball safe is fine against North Texas because they can't take it from you. And Tennessee, we've talked about their problem ad nauseum, just over and over and over again. They can't throw the football down the field. They cannot do it. Just can't do it. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. And, of course, the weakness of Georgia is they are streaky. First off, I don't think the defense is where Kirby Smart would like it to be. But also, from week to week, we don't know what we're going to get, which you would expect from Eason because he's a freshman. But I don't know what we expected out of Nick Chubb, but I kind of expected this out of Nick Chubb. Like, I heard that he looked great in practice when we were, coming up to the beginning of the season. And Nick Chubb came out and burned it down versus North Carolina. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm wrong about this. But I saw Nick Chubb's knee injury. You cannot injure your knee in that way and come back with no problems. You just can't do it. It's human. Nick Chubb is a human being. And as a result, he's got games where he doesn't look great. Nichols, he didn't look great. He looked like a mere mortal. Make sure to check out Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Again, that's Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio, or just go straight to our website and get to the social media pages from there. Our website, of course, is hotnewstalkradio.com or noogaradio.com, Nooga radio.com. And you can also check us out on the TuneIn Radio app. Again, that's the TuneIn Radio app, absolutely free in your favorite app store. Simply search Hot News Talk Radio in the app, give us a favorite, and press play, and you'll have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. So, TuneIn Radio. Listen like you mean it. So, we've got a number of great college football games coming up this weekend. And one of the games that I think everyone is circling as one of their favorite games is Ole Miss versus Michigan State, because Michigan State is playing really good football right now. And every year, everyone forgets about Michigan State because you look up at the Big Ten and, you know, Jim Harbaugh, because his mouth is enormous and oftentimes things come out of it. He's a guy that you highlight on. He does the whole thing with satellite camps all summer long, and you're just grinding your fists against your head going, when will Jim Harbaugh shut up? Like, he's just a profoundly annoying human being. And he has to be that way to be the college football recruiter that he is. And I think that's part of the reason why he's such a great coach too, is because if he's coaching for you, he's not annoying. It's when he's coaching against you that he becomes annoying, unless you're the 49ers and you're Trent Baalke and you have to work with Jim Harbaugh on a daily basis. And even though he is your coach, you still find him profoundly annoying. Regardless, Michigan gets a lot of the spotlight up there. Ohio State and Urban Meyer, rightfully so, get a lot of the spotlight up there. Iowa State ended up losing to North Dakota State, and you know, that's not a great look, but they get a lot of the spotlight up there. We just forget about Michigan State all the time. Just constantly forget about Michigan State and Mark D'Antonio and how good that program is up there. And now Ole Miss is going to play Michigan State, and that's a game I'm very much looking forward to. Chad Kelly is a guy that you would have put in Heisman conversation at the beginning of this season. And in fact, if Chad Kelly and Ole Miss come away with victories against Florida State and come away with a victory against Alabama, like they very much could have, but instead gave up epic comebacks in both situations, both teams rallying from down 21 against Ole Miss. If Ole Miss finishes the job on both of those teams, we're talking about Chad Kelly like a Heisman Trophy candidate. Instead, we've kind of let him fall to the wayside. Plus, you know, whatever it is that Louisville is doing with Lamar Jackson and him just looking like a monster of epic proportions. Like, we've forgotten everything about Chad Kelly. And I remember when a lot of people at the beginning of the season had Chad Kelly in their top 3 Heisman finalist candidates. Like, they would have had him right there, and we've just forgot all about him. But this game against Michigan State is going to be a really, really good game because Ole Miss can really put up a lot of points. The issue now is, can Ole Miss really put up a lot of points for 2 halves of a football game? Can we get the full dollar instead of 50 cents? Because what we're seeing from Ole Miss is a flurry of points, a flurry of activity to start games, and then they don't finish. And Michigan State isn't the kind of school that's going to be down to you 21. You're going to need to, if you're Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss, put together 4 quarters of football. You're going to have to do it. And I don't know if they have it in them. But I don't know. I haven't watched a ton of Michigan State football. I've been very impressed by the highlights of them that I've seen. I don't know exactly what Michigan State's going to be able to give to them. But Michigan State is right up there as far as quality opponents with Alabama and Florida State. And that is incredible to see Ole Miss start the season with this tough of a schedule already. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for listening. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, but stick around. Alex Jones is next.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.